Welcome. Good morning, everybody. My name is Annette Timmer, and I'm actually head of marketing for the workplace segment within a company called Tarkett. I will talk to you a little bit about what Tarkett does, but the majority of the presentation is really much more about research that we've been carrying out recently about how workers actually think and feel about the workplace segment, which I think is more interesting probably than to have a long corporate presentation about our company. Just very briefly what we do. So Tarkett is actually a very large flooring company in the world. We're the third largest. As you can see here, we've got quite an extensive amount of employees, 13,000, 2.8 billion turnover in sales. But what is very interesting, I think, and staggering, even to me when I present it every single day, is that we produce 1.3 million square meters, or sell 1.3 million square meters of flooring every single day. So that's quite an amount. And we do it also across a number of different segments, as you can see here, ranging from residential houses to aged care, healthcare, education. And today we will focus on the workplace segment as part of this presentation. So that's just very briefly giving you an introduction of what we actually do as a company. But what has always been central actually to our vision as a company, and going back to what I was just saying about producing 1.3 million square meters of flooring every single day, it's of course very crucial for us that we also think as a company about how can we actually make the floor work for people's health and well-being. So that is actually a part of how we innovate, it's a part of how we work as a company. And it's also a part of what has led to some of the research that I will be sharing with you as part of this presentation. As we know, we spend, and today will be probably no different for the majority of us, we spend 90% of our time indoors. And actually, when you think about it, we think about the great outdoors as being the place that we go for fresh air, for a sense of freedom and feeling good about ourselves. But we spend all of this time indoors. So that's of course the realization that we have with all of us. And yet we also know that if we really focus about the time that we spend in the indoor environment, we see of course a lot of trends, and I'm sure that will be demonstrated here today as well in increasing investment also in workplace wellness. As you can see here, really a rising line in terms of investments. This is then based on some US figures. So the aspect of wellness in the workplace is of course extremely, and how people actually feel as part of the health and well-being is extremely important. But we also know that these factors, the factors that actually impact people's workplace, if you like, productivity, is various factors here. Some of which, if I look at it from our point of view as a company, some of which we can do our small bit to improve with the flooring that we're making, but other aspects, of course, which is go further than just the physical aspects of the office environment, but also is all about really the health, physical factors, personal factors, etc., as well as the job and workplace factors, as you see at the top. And all of those are, of course, a key part of actually increasing or making the productivity in the workplace better, which is, I guess, what we would all like to achieve. So what we've been working on is this notion that we say, okay, we talk about the great outdoors, especially in the UK, it's a term that everybody knows, but what we would like to do is, spending 90% of our time indoors, is bring that sense of the great outdoors indoors. So what we've done just recently actually is launched a thought leadership platform called The Great Indoors. And that platform is really all about collaboration, it's about research, it's about sharing expert insights and perspectives into trends, what is happening within the workplace segment. And what I would like to share with you here today is actually some of those insights, because we started off actually in the preparation for the platform. We started off actually looking at what is already out there, and in terms of research and in terms of design aspects in the workplace. And what you see an awful lot of research around is indeed the physical factors of how should the office look, the design, its aspects, etc. And that's, of course, also from our point of view as a flooring company, very interesting and good for us to know exactly what are the trends that are happening there. But we actually didn't find an awful lot of research around how do the employees today actually in the workplace really feel about the workplaces that they are in on a day-to-day basis. So we thought it was really interesting to actually focus on that aspect, letting the employees actually speak and letting them talk about how do they feel about their workplace. But also not just about the time spent in the office, but also looking broader than that, realizing that, of course, we all spend around 8 hours a day in our office. But we also have private lives, we have other commitments outside which make our total lives, if you like. So we were really interested in understanding how do the broader aspects of life really look for employees, to really get a full sense of the picture. One of the things that we also really wanted to if you like, challenge is this aspect of the term workplace. We also call it workplace as a segment within our company, but actually workplace, and okay, maybe these images are a little bit exaggerated to get the point across, but the aspect of workplace is, of course, almost giving you the sense of you're within four walls, you're really sort of constrained to working from 9 to 5, and it's happening within these four walls. Whereas if you look at how people work already today with all the advantages, of course, of technology that has really broken down the barriers of where you can work wherever, the term actually work-life seemed to us as a much nicer and also more friendly term to describe how we actually live and work. And that the two, when we talk about work-life blend or work-life balance, there's always this sense of something has to give and something really doesn't necessarily have to give. And whereas we wanted to really check with people is this aspect of work-life and the two worlds, if you like, becoming much more fluid and coming together. Is that actually how people think about their lives today? And is that perhaps a more positive way of describing how we actually live and work? So some of the results, I'll start off first to give you sort of an impression of what we had from the European results. So we surveyed in the first instance, we surveyed 2,500 employees in 5 different countries. In the meantime, we've extended it with another 4 countries. So we have both European results, but we also have some UK results, which I'll share with you a bit later. Which is interesting, of course, to see also how the different countries do differ on certain aspects. But what you see here already is 55%, what we say modern lives, 55% actually already have non-parental commitments outside of their work. And what is interesting about that is it's perhaps not really surprising in that sense, but what is interesting about it is, of course, this aspect of work and life. Realizing that outside of being parents, there's also people who donate time to charity, who are caring for somebody in their family, have sports careers, etc. outside, which is all part of their broader lives, which is, of course, an interesting notion and also something as an employer that you do need to realize and also take into consideration that this is part of your employees' broader lives. Work and life coexist. 49% already say that actually work and life overlaps. And also 44% are already saying that they are already regularly working from home. So perhaps not hugely surprising, perhaps percentages for you, but still good to understand that this is really what is already happening. So at least what we said on the basis of the research and this notion that we wanted to test about work-life is that we said, well, it seems that this fluidity and this blending of the two lives coming together is really something that is already happening, and it is real, it is there. And it's just about companies realizing that this is also what is happening, but also what they can do to actually help their employees to achieve this balance, if you like. What was interesting as part of some of the results was actually that what came across was that the Generation Z is, so the younger generation were actually the ones saying that they struggled the most finding the balancing act, which was not perhaps necessarily what I would have thought of on the basis of the research. I always think, you know, I'm part of the middle-aged generation, and maybe it's more difficult for us to find the balance. But actually, on the basis of the research, it did come out that actually the younger generation, maybe also because of all sorts of other commitments, are actually finding this balancing act between work and life harder than the older generations. So that's, of course, an interesting notion for companies to understand as well. And I think one of the things that perhaps we're all guilty of is thinking that the happier the work-life phenomenon is really a female one, because it's very often, of course, the females who are taking time off, going home, looking after the children, etc. But actually what was coming out very clearly from the research is that men are feeling exactly the same strain. And luckily so, I would say that we are seeing that men are really having this need to want to also spend time with their children, to have this work-life balance being the correct one. And it's not just a female phenomenon in that sense. So that was, I think, quite interesting for us to see as part of the research. I don't know if it's surprising to anybody who is here in the room, or you think, yeah, a little bit surprising. That's what we thought on certain points as well. Then 57% say that their workplaces actually don't look great. So, which is sad in that sense, that you think, okay, you come into the office, you spend an awful lot of time there every single day, and you do it in an environment that is not looking great, which I'm sure does have some links with how you feel, how productive you are, and how good you feel. So another one of the surprising facts that actually came out of the research was that very often as well, when going back to what I was talking about in the beginning about the research, is that very often the examples that are drawn forward as examples of great offices are the sort of Google-type offices with, as you see here, with swings and pool tables, etc. But this was actually very clear on the basis of the research that this is not what people want in the office. What they do want is a minimalistic Scandinavian look. That is really what people appreciate in the office in terms of look and feel. I see a lot of people nodding, so or are there a lot of Scandinavians in the room? Perhaps. Okay, I'm Danish, so I'm guilty. Then noise is the number one concern. This is on the basis of the European results. Perhaps also not surprising to anybody that this is the case. But what was a little bit surprising to us, at least, was that air quality also scored so highly, because I think if you look back at least 5 years ago, I don't think that there was the same amount of knowledge and awareness around the aspect of air quality, certainly not indoors, as we're seeing today. And you will see it later on actually in the UK results that air quality actually comes out as the number one concern in the UK. So it's really, it has, I think, changed and switched around quite a lot in the past years. Then what was surprising as well to us was that only 9% actually stated that they were concerned about the environment as part of their office. Of course, this was a quantitative survey, so we couldn't go into the aspects of why is that, etc. So that qualitative part we haven't done yet. But the fact that it's so low actually did at least make us ask ourselves the question, is it because people are suffering from green fatigue? Is there's been so much talk about the environment and green credentials, etc., that people think, okay, it's being dealt with, it's okay? Or is it because people think, okay, maybe it's not my role to do that, it's my employer's role to make sure that we are acting responsibly? But still, it's a very low percentage, so it's definitely something that we're interested in learning and understanding better why this is the case, because it's certainly a lot lower than I would have necessarily expected. Then flexible working hours comes across the board, of course, in every single country as the biggest motivator. And I'm sure it's not surprising to the majority of people here, yet I believe that the It's not something that is always offered by every single company, a flexibility in the working hours. And actually, when it comes out as the top benefit, it's above additional salary, etc. It seems like a really easy way, of course, to be able to really offer something to employees that is highly appreciated and really improves their motivation. So it's still an interesting notion. Now, 63% say that even despite of all these aspects of offices and designs and things that perhaps could be better in the office, that they are still feeling that they are the most productive in the office. So that's, of course, a good sign. There's been also a lot of talk about the death of the office and what will happen in the future. Will we need offices? Well, actually, also the younger generation are the ones stating, yeah, I really want a place to belong. I feel that I do need a place where I also really feel like I have a connection. But that the offices, of course, will need to look different and will need to cater perhaps better for people's needs and wants is clear on the basis of the earlier points that we already saw. But it's still, of course, very important, and I think also very good to see that people do still feel that they are productive in the office environment. So, we'll switch over to the UK results. So, just to give it a bit of an impression, also half of the UK workers see the growing convergence between home and work life as a benefit. So this aspect of what I was talking about earlier, that the two worlds really are, in that sense, coming together and are blending much more. And the lines, if you like, are much more fluid, is really something that is happening and appreciated. Yet, still 42% do say that balancing that is really still balancing their home lives with the work is still a juggling act. Is this higher than what you would have expected, or is this what you would also expect? Yeah. So 27% of employees feel actually most fulfilled at work when they're receiving praise or recognition, and that's followed by meeting their targets. So this is an extremely important aspect, of course, for employees to receive praise. Probably not surprising either, but it doesn't always happen, I think. 40% find flexible working hours the most attractive benefit. So again, the flexibility is extremely important. UK organizations need to prioritize mental health and well-being. Those are the two most important factors to really focus on for UK companies. Is that surprising to anybody that the percentages are so high? No? It's all... And then this is an interesting one. So 58% of UK offices are actually most likely to be open plan. Yet only 10% of the people that we actually surveyed actually prefer to work on their own. They work independently. So this aspect of open plan offices is maybe not always meeting that need in terms of being able to work independently as opposed to collaborating with others. So it seems that also in the office design and thinking about how office spaces should look, that there's definitely still a need, and I'm sure that a lot of companies have already dealt with this, but there's also still a need to really make sure that there is this aspect of understanding that at some points, of course, you want to work on your own. In other aspects, you really want to make sure that you are that you have the peace and quiet and are able to actually close yourself up, do work that is on your own. So an interesting, I think, notion as well. 40% stated that their current place of work does not offer any benefits at all. That to me was a really high percentage, I think. Maybe it's the 500 people that we surveyed that just happened to not have great places to work in that sense, but it's really... I think quite a high percentage of people. Is that something you recognize, or?
Sorry, what do you mean by benefits?
It could be anything, whether it's flexibility or whether it's other types of worker benefits, basically. So it's any benefits. So they're not being offered anything in terms of benefits from their company. So it's really...
that feels quite high.
Yeah.
I think there are lots of companies that offer benefits, but
Yeah.
there are probably lots more that don't.
Yeah.
Maybe compared
Yeah.
Certainly for myself, I can't imagine a company not doing that.
No,
I imagine,
no.
especially in the UK,
Yeah.
moving towards employee benefits, but
Yeah.
for some people it's going to be really slow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's still, I think it's quite a high figure, but in that sense. So women actually in the UK are the most dissatisfied with their workplaces. 21% stating that it does not look good, whereas only 15% of men actually think that. This was actually varying quite a lot between the different countries, because in certain countries actually it was much more important. Both in Sweden and also in Holland, it was much more important to the men how the workplace actually looked, which was surprising also to us in that sense. So it was an interesting notion to see that it really does change a lot per country, how people really feel, and also who places that emphasis on the office design, whether it's men or women. But that it's important for both, it's clear. So again here, also the Scandinavian style is really what the British workers would like to see, followed by a collaborative and homely feel, which is 19% saying that. That comes across, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Then we have 50% of the Generation Z is the most likely to work from home, whereas actually the older generations are working less from home than the younger generation. I think also not a surprising fact for anybody. So this is where I mentioned earlier that air quality is actually the point that comes and tops the charts here in the UK research. In all the other countries it was actually noise first, followed by air quality, but what you see here in the UK results is really that air quality is really something that it has become for officers a key concern. So I think that's really something, as I mentioned earlier, that has changed in the past years. I don't know if you see it also within your companies, within that there is a more active concern about this topic. Yes. Yeah. See a few people nodding. Yes. We're all coughing here. And then noise, of course, which is, I think, with all the open plan offices, etc., office design, as we just talked about, not a big surprise either, that this is still something that plays a really key role within the office segment. Again, here a little bit lower than the across the board on the European results, but still 60% of UK workers do feel that they are actually the most productive in their office environment. Is that also how you work? Do you feel the most productive when you're in the office? If you're in the right, you can close yourselves off? No? 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 And why are you not feeling the most productive in the office? Yeah. 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 Exactly. Yeah. It's the same for you? Yeah? And for the ones who feel most productive in the office, is that, do you have a different sort of office layout, a different?
I think it's just if you work from home, we don't have the same sort of configuration for your technology.
Yeah.
It's easy, accessible to like sleep to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Performance.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. So I just wanted to give you a couple of examples very shortly about what we have been doing as a company actually to make the floor work for people's health and well-being. So luckily, actually, if you look at the results, we actually started with regards to solutions for air quality and also for noise quite a number of years ago. And one of the products that we have in our range is actually what we call the Desto Air Master, and that's a carpet actually that is all about capturing fine dust from the air. Meaning that actually we always think that the outdoor air is worse than the indoor air, but very often actually the indoor air is worse than the outdoor air. So we actually launched this product back in 2010. It's a huge success for us because it's really about being able to capture so all this fine dust that you see in the air that you can't even see it. It's so small that for the eye you can't actually spot it, but that's exactly the kind of fine dust particles that actually enter your lungs and enter into your body that is extremely damaging to you. So that's why we thought, okay, what could be a better health and well-being innovation than to actually launch a product that helps you to capture that fine dust that's floating in the air and actually retains it until you clean it for the next time. This is the UK Green Building Office actually in the in here in the UK that chose also for this product because of its green credentials and indeed what the product offers. And we also have, of course, tried to contribute to the aspect of noise with our Soundmaster. This is a particular backing that you actually see that is really giving a cushioning effect, but also really reduces the amount of impact sound and improves the acoustics in offices. So it's just a couple of examples, but I think this is exactly what companies like ours can actually do to try to also answer to some of these needs that are already there in the office place. And luckily there are lots of course, different interventions. We spoke earlier on about air humidifiers, etc. But there's lots of different interventions, of course, that you can do in an office environment to really make it better and make it a better environment for the employees who are there. So I mentioned in the beginning that we've launched this Great Indoors platform. And this is also a platform that's really about collaboration. It's not meant to be a platform that is just about us talking about what is happening within the workplace segment. It is really about allowing lots of different stakeholders who actually are already working in one way or another in the workplace segment to have a voice on this particular platform. Just to give you an impression of some of the people who are already engaged on the platform, ranging from workspace designers to professors at the London Business School, just to ensure that we are really covering different aspects of what is happening, as I said, in the workplace segment. So they're all covering different aspects, whether it's design or whether it's sustainability, etc., and are actually blogging on this particular platform to really also share their views and their insights onto these areas. So we're looking for contributors. We're really looking to engage and to be sure that we are staying really forward thinking with regards to the research and with regards to the knowledge and insights that we're sharing on the platform itself. Because this is really how we would like it to be transparent. We would like it to be really forward thinking, as I already mentioned, in terms of what is happening within that segment. What we do next to the platform itself, so we have on one hand the online platform, which I'll share you the link a little bit later on. We also do live events, and the live events are really there to actually strengthen the conversation even further. These are some snapshots from a session that we actually held in Amsterdam with some architects and designers who we spent an entire day with, actually sharing with them the research. So in a bit more detail than I've shown the highlights with you now on the research. And what we did with them is to really dive into some of the topics in more detail, to really understand also how are they working, how do they see some of these topics, what do they come across as part of their day-to-day work. And they found it extremely interesting to really also, and in some cases also surprising some of the results, meaning that it could impact the way that they think and how they design offices for the future. So it was a really interesting session, and this is where, with these types of sessions, next to the research, next to the blogs that we're sharing on the platform, that we really want to strengthen the conversation further and really be able to deepen that conversation in much more detail. We will have another live session actually here in London on the 29th of November, so if there is anybody interested in joining, you're very welcome. Please come and see us. I have some colleagues here sitting at the back as well who can help you. And otherwise, please come and see me. So I wanted to actually finish off with, I don't know how much time we still have. 10 minutes, okay. So I have a short film actually that talks about this research that we've been doing, that talks about the Great Indoors, that I just wanted to share with you. And then we still have a little bit of time open for questions. So time-wise, I think we're okay. So I will start the film.
Welcome to the Great Indoors. We think the term workplace is outdated. It implies that work only happens within the same four walls, being trapped inside a box both physically and mentally. The way we work is changing rapidly. New technologies mean workers have the freedom to choose where and how they work. This is also impacting employees' mentality. Workers increasingly value flexibility, that isn't always available in a traditional office setting. Rather than talking about workplace, we believe the focus should be on work-life, reflecting the fact that everything is much more fluid now. The modern office needs to be just as flexible as the people who work in it. Work-life considerations go beyond the physical design of office spaces to thinking about how employees operate within those spaces, so that the office can become a healthy and invigorating setting that liberates, not constrains employees by allowing them to work to their full potential. Because our survey of 2,500 office workers across 5 countries tells us that 45% of people don't currently feel supported in meeting their full potential. That managing their responsibilities in and outside of the office is a challenge. That more than anything they want greater flex. But given the choice to work from anywhere, 63% still believe they're at their most productive in the office. So how can work-life thinking help transform the office into a space where employees feel engaged, empowered and free, where they can enjoy ultimate flex while also having a clearly defined work environment? And how do factors such as age, gender and working style impact on our workplace preferences? The research revealed some clear trends. We'll be analysing these trends on a newly launched editorial platform, The Great Indoors, where expert perspectives, knowledge and ideas will be combined with exploring best practice in creating productive, enriching work environments and highlighting the wealth of opportunities connected to work life. As well as engaging our core commercial design community, the content published here will be interesting for architects, interior designers for commercial offices, and workplace specialists. Indeed, anyone concerned with fostering a happier, healthier, more motivated workforce. The Great Indoors is a platform for collaborative content and conversation with a focus on health and well-being. The work-life trend is just one of a series of themes we'll be exploring. Let's come together to make sure the indoors is indeed great and geared up for a new way of working. If you're interested in learning more about the Great Indoors, work life, or even digging into more of our research, visit us at the Great Indoors. The 4 walls of the traditional office are coming down. It's time to think about what's next.